The Rite of Spring, as any pretentious classical work would do, starts with a prelude. Now, the prelude wasn't the first thing that was written for the album, but it comes after writing the core song of the album, The Rite of Spring, the title track. And it's a backwards progression where the Rite of Spring, the title track, is quite layered, electric and complex, and the prelude is the same tune that carries the vocals in the Rite of Spring song, but played in an altogether different light acoustic way. I was a bit concerned, thinking, is it a good idea to do the prelude with a completely different sound from the rest of the album? But I ended up thinking, stuff it, if it was good enough for Stravinsky with his Rite of Spring, I'll settle for that one. And the idea is for it to invoke, a feeling of early morning, the early light you get before the sun has actually risen. And the tune itself is a steal. It's the tune of a traditional folk song, You Seaman Bold, or Ship in Distress it sometimes gets called. And I have a connection with that in that many years ago I used to do things with the folk song collector Peter Kennedy, who worked at Dartington, and the song You Seaman Bold, I think one of the first people to collect and notate that was a lady called Maud Carpeles, who worked for Vaughan Williams. And she was actually Peter Kennedy's auntie. And again, if it was good enough for Vaughan Williams to use, I felt comfortable using it as a component in the Rite of Spring. Having set the scene like that, we then have a simple percussive track, just baran and frame drums. And if you listen to that on poor quality equipment, it doesn't really work. It doesn't get the point to it. If you listen to it with good, proper hi-fi, with separated speakers, you realise that the drum tracks all appear to be coming from different places, and there's a joining together in the centre, and it's like groups of people coming to the Druid ritual from different places, drumming, coming together to then experience what's going to unfold before them. The next track, The Elemental Circle, is the first vocal part of the album, and it's about creating the magical space, casting the circle, it would be called in a druidic ritual, calling the quarters, hailing east, south, west, north. The sequence is important. It's sunwise. I quite specifically avoided using the word clockwise because I didn't want anything about the album to be connected with machinery. I wanted it to be spiritual and natural. And each of the quarters is associated with an element. East is air, south is fire, west is water, and north is earth. And the lyrics reflect that. We're looking to create a magical space which is outside of time, a setting for the rest of the ritual. Then moves on to the song Sing the Sun, which is really coming to the point of this ritual. It's a piece in praise of and in recognition of the way that the sun brings energy, power, fertility. As the days lengthen, the land warms, it gets ready to produce crops. The song Sing the Sun was actually the first part of the Rite of Spring that I finished as a coherent song. And Collie, who does some backing vocals and duetting vocals throughout this, I always wanted to have something that wasn't just me with my growly, manly voice, but that was also bringing in aspects of the feminine, because the piece is about both masculine and feminine. It's about bringing life, it's about fertility. And Sing the Sun really catches that. I was pleased with the song, and it seems to have worked much great pagan magic at festivals, because we've never been rained off whilst playing that song. And working in Cornwall, doing outdoor gigs, the fact that every single one was able to go ahead, that's pretty cool. Now we come to the core song, the actual Rite of Spring, which is the final track on the first side of the vinyl version of the album. And it tells of the death of the old crone and the resurrection as the glimmering girl who later, as the end of spring moves into the summer, becomes the woman goddess with her consort, the bearded man, John Barleycorn, who will later be cut down, will die and again be resurrected. It's a different take on the Elton John circle of life thing. This is from a Celtic perspective rather than Walt Disney's perspective. The tune for the song part of the Rite of Spring is the same as we had to start the work, the prelude. It's stolen from the traditional folk song tune, You Seaman Bold or Ship in Distress, and it moves to a celebration at the end of this section, which is a jig. It's a jig that, again, I've sort of stolen. It started out life as a Morris dance tune in a major key and in a normal, strict 4/4 time signature. And I've taken that Morris dance tune, which I think was called Banbury Bill, and first of all I've changed the key and moved it into Dorian mode, which is the basic key of the Rite of Spring. And I've also changed the time signature. Instead of it being in normal common time, 4/4 time, we've changed it into a jig timing, a triple time, 6/8. And in the same way that the song tune is restating the prelude tune, this jig is going to reappear at the end of the whole piece. It closes side 1 of the vinyl album, and the same jig will also, played differently, close the piece, close side 2 of the vinyl album. The next section, Bridge, moves us from the core key of the work, which is E Dorian, we now move to the relative minor, B minor, and the bridge starts side 2 of the vinyl album, and it's a big, fat, overdriven, distorted thing on my electric octave mandolin through the Marshall stack, making a sound which isn't much like a normal mandolin sound, but I like it, it's interesting. And we move then in the same key, the minor, into the telling. Now, in a druidic ritual, I guess a telling fulfills pretty much the same function as a sermon in a church service. This is a polemic. We've had a song praising the coming of the sun and the giving of energy. We've had the narrative in the Rite of Spring about how we're moving from the end of the springtime into the warmth and light of the summer. And the telling is now a piece to really tell us that we need to value and respect the earth that we live on. Musically, it's actually identical to the bridge. It's the same chords, the same inversions, the same chord shapes, in the same sequence, and it's at the same tempo as the bridge. But it's played differently, and I don't think anyone has picked up without being told that it is musically the same. And that's a typical Davey trick, if you like, is using the same musical thing but doing it in a way that's so different that it's a trick. It appears to be a completely new piece. The telling is asking us to respect nature, to value the earth. And we then move into a section in the relative major key, which is D major. The Arwans are a musical introduction, a change of scene for the next instrumental piece. And Arwen is an old Celtic word which in Cornish, Welsh, means something like inspiration. In a druidic ritual, Arwens would have probably a similar function to Amen in an ecclesiastical musical piece. We move in, again staying in the major key, to a tune Hand in Hand at the Rollrights. I've been lucky during the lockdown times of 2020. I was able to visit the Rollright Stones, which are very close to where I now live, and I was able to just enjoy the special atmosphere and energy of the place, and that resulted in the tune Hand in Hand at the Rollrights, which again is a bit of a steal. I know it's related to a piece of traditional music that I have a vague recollection of from the playing of one Donald Lunny from Planxty. And please, please, please don't anybody contact me and explain that this traditional tune, that I've got such and such a note wrong and it should have gone in a different way. I really don't care. I'm not trying to reproduce a traditional tune, an air. I'm using it as inspiration and foundation for a new and different piece. The the tune then moves to a restatement of the Arwens, exactly the same musically as the introduction to Hand in Hand at the Roll Rights, but this time with layered vocals. Sahila Clifford doing good solid backing vocals and Collie adding her special tones that manage to really soften my voice and change the vibe of the piece from being all butch and manly to being both male and female. We then come to the end of the ritual. We've sung the praises of the sun, we've had a sermon about looking after the earth, we've had interesting music. Now we're going to stop and unwind the circle. And this is, again, a restatement of the elemental circle, but done backwards, going north, west, south, east, and saying our farewells to the quarters. The ritual over and finished, the serious part done. We finish with a full-on celebration. Like the Beltane fire is time to party. We've done the deeply meaningful and spiritual stuff. Now it's going to get basic, rowdy, rude. We're going to enjoy heralding in the summer, heading off to the woods, misbehaving, dancing, drinking, and just having a good time. And that's how the album finishes, on a good, full-on, celebratory note, because this whole piece is intended to be a celebration of natural forces.